Daily Words of God. In man's traditional conceptions, God's love is His grace, mercy, and sympathy for the weakness of man. Although these things are also the love of God, they are too one-sided and are not the primary means by which God makes man perfect. When some people have just begun to believe in God, it is because of illness. This illness is God's grace for you. Without it, you would not believe in God. And if you did not believe in God, then you wouldn't have come this far. And thus, even this grace is the love of God. In the time of belief in Jesus, people did much that was unbeloved by God because they did not understand the truth. Yet God has love and mercy, and He has brought man this far. And although man understands nothing, still God allows man to follow Him, and furthermore has led man to today. Is this not the love of God? That which is manifested in God's disposition is the love of God. This is absolutely right. When the building of the church reached its peak, God did the step of work of the service doers and cast man into the bottomless pit. The words of the time of the service doers were all curses: the curses of your flesh, the curses of your satanic corrupt disposition, and the curses of the things of you that do not fulfill God's will. The work done by God in that step was manifested as majesty, closely after which God carried out the step of the work of chastisement, and there came the trial of death. In such work, man saw the wrath, majesty, judgment, and chastisement of God. Yet he also saw God's grace and His love and mercy. All that God did, and all that was manifested as His disposition, was the love of man. And all that God did was able to fulfill the needs of man. He did it in order to make man perfect, and provided according to man's stature. If God had not done this, man would be incapable of coming before God and would have no way of knowing the true face of God. From when man first began to believe in God until today, God has gradually provided to man in accordance with man's stature, so that inside, man has gradually come to know Him. Only having come to today does man realize just how wonderful is the judgment of God. The step of work of the service doers was the first incidence of the work of imprecation from the time of creation until today. Man was cursed into the bottomless pit. If God had not done that, today man would not have a true knowledge of God. It is only through the imprecation of God that man officially encounters the disposition of God. Those experiences showed man that his loyalty was unacceptable, that his stature was too small, that he was incapable of satisfying God's will, and that his claims of satisfying God at all times were nothing more than words. Although in the step of the work of the service doers God cursed man, looked at from today, that step of work was wonderful. It brought a great turning point for man and caused a great change in his life disposition. Before the time of the service doers, man understood nothing of the pursuit of life, what it means to believe in God, or the wisdom of God's work, nor did he understand that God's work can test man. From the time of the service doers through to today, man sees how wondrous is the work of God. It is unfathomable to man, and using his brain, he is unable to imagine how God works, and also sees how small is his stature, and that too much of him is disobedient. When God cursed man, it was in order to achieve an effect, and he did not put man to death. Although he cursed man, he did so through words, and his curses did not actually befall man. For what God cursed was the disobedience of man, and so the words of his curses also made man perfect. Whether God judges man or curses him, both make man perfect. Both are in order to make perfect that which is impure within man. Through this means, man was refined, and that which was lacking within man was made perfect through his words and work. Every step of God's work, whether it be harsh words or judgment or chastisement, makes man perfect and is absolutely appropriate. Never throughout the ages has God done work such as this. Today, he works within you so that you have appreciated his wisdom. Although you have suffered some pain within you, your hearts feel steadfast and at peace. It is your blessing to be able to enjoy this stage of the work of God. Regardless of what you are able to gain in the future, all that you see of God's work in you today is love. If man does not experience God's judgment and refinement, his actions and fervor will always be on the outside, and his disposition will always remain unchanged. Does this count as having been gained by God? Today, although there is still much within man that is arrogant and conceited, man's disposition is much more stable than before. God's dealing of you is in order to save you, and although you may feel some pain at the time, the day will come when there occurs a change in your disposition. At that time, you will look back and see how wise the work of God is, and that will be when you are able to truly understand God's will. Today, there are some people who say they understand God's will, but that is none too realistic. They are talking nonsense, because at present they have yet to understand whether the will of God is to save man or curse man. Perhaps you cannot see it clearly now, but the day will come when you see that the day of God's glorification has arrived. You will see how meaningful it is to love God, making you come to know the human life and making your flesh live in the world of loving God. Your spirit will be set free. Your life will be full of joy. You will always be close to God and will always look unto God. At that time, you will truly know how valuable the work of God today is.